2 chapters on this in the book, I thought to myself, who better than to teach this topic than the professionalism expert herself? Coach Randi Knapp is a professional and etiquette coach, and she works with students and organizations all across the Brazos Valley. She is a personal mentor and dear friend of mine. We are so excited to have her with us here this morning. Thank you. I'm going to give you all the time.
Perfect.
Give her a warm Aggie welcome.
Someone said, I didn't know that we were going to have a guest speaker, and until Tuesday, I didn't know I would be here either. But I am delighted because this is one of my favorite things to do, is to talk about professionalism, because so many students I find have never been taught or don't believe that it can be important. So I'm going to be like a fire hose today, although I do want to make sure at the very end that I save time for 5 minutes of questions. So when my alarm goes off, I'm going to stop. It's going to be hard. It will be hard, and then answer questions that you have. And then I'll stay around after the class if you have any questions. But first, I want Miss Victoria to, one of my clients was a guy named Ryan King in the Vanguard, with the Vanguard organization, and he has a wonderful idea that I want you to know about. So would you tell us, Miss Victoria?
All right, howdy. So I am going to talk about Maroon and White Night in downtown Bryan. Raise a hand and who has been to downtown Bryan? All right, good. A lot of people, actually. A lot of students don't go down there much, but it is a South by Southwest theme festival that we're hosting on March 20th, 2020. It starts at 6 p.m. There are discounts for businesses that are participating. Student organizations will be active. There will be live music and dancing, so everybody come check it out. And they also have an Instagram account, maroon_and_white_night. Mess it up a little bit, but check it out. It's going to be a great event.
Perfect. I would encourage you to go. Going to downtown Bryan is fun if you haven't been. And then every first Friday, there are First Friday events. So give where you live. Enjoy where you live. I do want to go off topic, and I looked at a couple of these assignments that you turned in and wanted to share something I just learned in the last year about writing, and I'm a pretty good writer. And that is because I was a marketing major, and so I do a lot of writing, but also as an entrepreneur, I send a lot of correspondence out to people. And what I've learned is this: it's not about you, it's about the person that you are writing to. So if in your cover letter or any kind of correspondence, emails or whatever that you're sending, if you can take away the I and replace it with you, it's more impactful. So if you will go through, I'm sure all of you have copies of this, is go through your cover letter and circle the number of I's that you used and see if you could change that around. I mean, it's too late right now, but change that around so it's a you focus. You are looking for someone who is professional, someone who is hardworking. You are doing this, you are doing that. Of course, you have to put in I sometimes, but I find what I would do is that I spent too much time talking about me. And it's really about the person that you want to make a decision and to change their behavior. That's who you're really focused on. So let's talk about professionalism 101. Just a little bit about me. I'm an Aggie, marketing major. I was a recruiting director for a company called Anderson Consulting. So I got to market career opportunities. And that's where I learned how to interview, how to develop resumes, and also got into what I do now because we hired really competent people that didn't necessarily know how to be business professionals. I'm also blessed to be a president and a believer. I should have put what my strengths are. I can't remember what now. Sorry. Encourager, a coach, and then in 2015 I was officially a namesake. But it's not about me. It's really about you. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is this. There's a great book called Change Your Habits, Change Your Life. Sorry. Change Your Habits, Change Your Life. And a man named Thomas Corley interviewed nearly 200 people that were self-made millionaires, and he found that there were common behaviors between them. And of course, the ones that I'm interested in are the behaviors that revolve around being nice to people and having manners and using manners as a superpower. And so what he said is self-made millionaires have mastered certain rules of etiquette principles you have to master if you want to be a success. One is sending thank you notes, acknowledging important life events, eating politely and using table manners, and addressing properly for various social events. Nothing that costs a lot of money, but they are things that you have to be deliberate in doing. So you think about, if I could do these things and be guaranteed success, would you not want to do it? Would you not want to do it? But it's a great book because we all have habits. And one of the things that I do when I teach dining etiquette is when people pick up their utensils, they have a habit. And if it's not the correct habit, then I'm the encourager to show them the correct way to do it as the coach, and then hopefully they will then develop a new habit. The other things that I would share with you is this. As we journey in life, about 90% of what happens to, or 90% of what happens to us is based on a good attitude. And so I would suggest this. Attitude is a little thing, but it makes a big difference. And so if you are one that tends to have a bad attitude about things, or at certain days of the week, then put on your happy face and develop a better attitude, because that is a behavior that is under your control. One of the things that my daughters would really be angry about is when they would say, oh, she made me so mad. That really hurt my feelings. Is that no one controls that. You control your responses because you are able, as a human, to make responses, which sets you aside from, let's say, a dog. Because my dog, when I go home today, that dog is going to be so happy to see me. And it doesn't matter if he's had a bad day or if it's been raining, he is still going to have the same response to me that he always has, and that is absolutely that Mama Knapp is home. So think about what the reactions that you have to people, because you made that determination. And then people determine their reaction to you. So when we think about professionalism, how does this tie into professionalism? If you want to be perceived as a professional, then you have to act like a professional. People aren't going to see you and go, oh, well, that's a professional. You've got to make sure that that happens. So when you think about the adjectives that describe you, yes, you have your strengths from Gallup, but there are also behaviors that you have that people will say about you. And so I've sent these handouts to Miss Wright, and so you'll have access to this. But think about these behaviors. One person, do you see a word on here that would describe you? Tell me. Somebody be brave. Respectful. So how do you in your life, how do you demonstrate respectful?
Just like knowing your situation and knowing.
Give me a specific example. When were you respectful?
Like listening to people, not making eye contact other than because playing with the keys or my tag.
Yes, very good. Very good. You saw what I just did with her. In an interview, and probably what might happen with this mock interview, is a good recruiter or a good interviewer will ask you to tell me about yourself, and then you will put different labels like respectful or honest or trustworthy or pleasant or hardworking or loyal. And then what they will ask is this: give me an example of when you demonstrated that behavior. So you better have some stories to tell that demonstrate that label. Because if you can't come up with any, then how can it be that? So that sets apart. Because if I say I'm a professional, well, what are you doing to be a professional? Well, I'm dressed in business professional. This is a suit because the pants and the jacket match. I have on closed-toed shoes, and I look like I'm going in for business as opposed to on a date. So that's one way that I've demonstrated that I'm a professional. But I also know what I'm talking about. I was also very prepared with this because I had this information available. So just think about what maybe some on these you want to be. And guess what? You can make yourself that by demonstrating those behaviors. So when we think about being a professional, first impressions are very, very important because you have one chance to make a positive first impression. Now, all of you look great as students on a beautiful Friday afternoon. But when you go into an interview or when you go to a career fair or you go to any kind of networking event, it's important that you dress for the job you want, not for where you are in this life. And you have to think about what that's going to be. Is it business casual or is it business professional? The other thing is this, and what I find is that So many people have RBF. And so they, even as I look out on you, except for you, this is your expression. And as a speaker, and I'm sure as any type of person who is up in front of a group, it's really hard to get all energetic when all you're giving me is this. So I'm going to suggest positive facial expression. It is something that I'm working on right now because I've seen pictures of me as I'm working in the classroom, and I didn't have it. So how can I've got to demonstrate what I'm preaching. And so look at class. I mean, we're supposed to be a very, very happy and a very thoughtful and a very friendly campus. But if you're walking around with earbuds, looking down, without a smile on your face, you're not. As a matter of fact, I just saw this poor boy, senior in his boots, and he was looking down. I went, "Howdy!" And I kind of freaked him out. Thought, I know about that stuff. You're supposed to tell me howdy, because I'm an admin. So anyway, just consider PFE. You got to work on it at all times. Driving in the car, at the movie theater, in class. Because I'm going to tell you, people will notice. So I was watching with my daughter one of the first seasons or sessions of The Bachelor. Anybody watch that? Remember when all the girls were standing up there and he was going to give those first roses out? What was their facial expression? And then they were all, I'm sure thinking, is it going to be me? And they were all just so frightened. I will bet if there was one person, one of those females, who had a positive expression on her face, he would have certainly given her the rose because she was different than everybody else. So just a thought. You also want, when you think about your attire, you think about, I want to people to have the perception that I'm competent and that I'm confident. And so how do you feel confident in attire that maybe you only wear once every couple of weeks? You put it on and you walk around and you just feel confident. It becomes your uniform. There are many, many people, for example, Kevin Moore, who's over in the business school, I always see him in a suit. Jerry Strasser, always see him in a suit. And that's just their uniform. That's what they get comfortable in. So if you want to feel good in your interview clothes so that you can focus on selling yourself, don't put it on the day of. Wear it a couple of days beforehand. You also want to show respect for self and others with your attire, knowing what to wear at certain times. And one of the things we'll talk about at the very end is interpersonal flexibility, which is the ability to tailor not only your attire, but your message based on the audience. Because if you were to wear this every day to class, that would be kind of goofy. That'd be kind of goofy. But wearing what you have to an interview would also not be really wise. The other thing that attire shows is that you have an understanding of the situation and what the expectations are. So I was a class agent for several years, and we had one of our class reunions several years ago at Miramont, which is the nicest country club in town, and it was business. It was cocktail attire. Well, one of my classmates shows up in blue jeans that weren't really pressed, boots that had been working out in the yard with, as well as kind of a crumpled shirt. No tie and no jacket, which is required at this country club. So it showed a lot of things about him not really positive. And so again, you have to think about what are people thinking about me from a professional perspective. You also want your tone of voice to be calm, but also powerful. And we'll talk a little bit about filler words as well as using inflection. The other thing, and syllables at the end of your words, because you don't want to give your power away. And then you want to make sure that you have an introduction that is memorable. So remember, your image is the one thing that you can control completely because you make the decisions on what you put on your body. So how many of y'all go to the grocery store and buy fruit? Okay, so when you buy fruit, what do you look for? Let's say you're going into buy these apples, these gala apples at H-E-B. What would you look for? Excuse me?
Perfect apple.
And what's the perfect apple?
No blemishes.
No blemishes, no bruises, good color, shiny. Anything else? Would you smell it? See if it smelled like an apple? One time I was at the H-E-B and I walked past the display of apples. Oh my gosh, they smell like apples. Because sometimes you can buy them and they look beautiful, but they don't have any taste because they don't smell like an apple. Anything else you would look for? Would you deliberately pick one that was misshapen or wasn't perfect? Would you ever do that? I did have a student one time, and I think it's because he felt sorry for the misshapen. I thought, well, if I'm paying $1.97 for Honey Crisps, you better believe I'm going for the best Honey Crisp I can. So here's the thing to think about. We know that it is not fair that people will judge us based on what we wear as a professional. But we do it, just like we judge these apples. And so you think about when you go in to be selected, aren't you the one that wants to be the perfect one? The one that is selected because you look like a professional. You look, here we go, I'm going to say you look like a gala apple. You don't want to look like a gala apple, but you know where I'm going on this. You want to make sure that you look the part. So just think, we do judge a book by its cover, as much as we don't think that's fair, because it's not. So here's Jerry Strasser, the man who always wears a suit. He's a former dean of the business school. Always has a smile. The thing that I really appreciate about Dr. Strasser is this. He is a person that is so good about networking. So here's a little tip. Whenever if he's met you, if he sees something in the paper, online, on any kind of website that he thinks you might have an interest in or might add value to what you're doing as a professional or even in your personal life, he takes the time to forward it or put it in an envelope. That's called networking. That's called providing something to someone without expecting anything else. And it's a really nice habit to get into. So if that's not a part of what you're doing right now, I would say work to put that into your to-do list. Is because the people that you meet don't have access to all the wonderful material that you have as a student at Texas A&M. And they might love to, and it's up to them to accept it or to read it or whatever, if you see something that you think they might like. So when you think about head-to-toe details, you always want to be well-groomed. You want to make sure that you have a professional haircut. Again, as you get into the interviewing process, as a student, you look like a student. But when you want to look like a professional, you want to change things up. You want to have groomed facial hair. You want to have suitable makeup if you're a woman. Now, I'm not saying you have to wear makeup, but I'm saying that I've read that surveys that say women that wear makeup make 30% more because they look more put together. But that's your choice. All of these are your choice. I'm just making recommendations. The other thing is that your nails are clean and trimmed. And ladies, if you wear nail polish, make sure it's either on or off. The worst thing you can do is have chipped nail polish, especially if you're a server somewhere. The other thing is you want to have good hygiene. And I would have never thought that I would have had to tell students you need to take a bath every day and you need to use deodorant. Because in the state of Texas and in the United States, we like people to not smell like bodily odors. It's just a fact. The other thing is that when you wear your clothes, you want to make sure that they are the best quality you can afford. You want to make sure that they're clean and that they're pressed, that they fit your body. As a matter of fact, I was at a wedding on Saturday night, and there was a man who, it's not like he's lost considerable weight in the last month or so. It's been an ongoing thing, but his suit jacket was just swallowed. It was huge. And so you want to make sure that you use alterations so that the clothes that you wear fit your body and not the body that they were designed for. Again, just a thought. Appropriate jewelry. I had a student ask me the other day, what about the new Apple Watches that are always flashing? I would never wear those in an interview or through the interview process because it is like your cell phone. If your cell phone goes off, then you're naturally wanting to look down at it, which is not what you want to do. So I would take that off during the interview because you don't want to look down at it. The other thing is any leather items are in good repair, which means shine your shoes. Make sure your heels, ladies, are good on your shoes. Make sure the soles are good. Again, it's all those details that make a big difference. And then the other thing, refrain from chewing gum. And this was my epiphany just a couple of months ago, as I went to an event at the horse center, equine center. And so there was a person that was greeting me, and he was chewing gum. And I thought, and he was talking. Well, one of the things I say is don't don't talk with food in your mouth as you're eating. Well, gum really is kind of a food. And it's not professional. And it would drive you crazy if I was up here smacking, trying to be a professional. So it is not professional. I love gum. Mentos is my gum of choice. But you want to make sure that from a professional perspective, you're not chewing it in the interview or when you're talking with anyone. So business professional for men, I'm going to go through this really quickly, is jacket, pants, skirt, and matching fabric and color. You want to have some kind of collared shirt that's white or blue cotton, not monochromatic. Do not buy a red shirt, gentlemen, or dark blue, anything, or black. You want to just stick with white or blue. And then your belt is always the same color as your leather sole shoes. And then you want to make sure that you have socks that cover your leg. This is not a good look. Now, I know a lot of young people are doing this now, but it's for if you're interviewing with someone older, they're going to go, hey, buddy, did you forget your socks? They really will. So for women, business professional attire is you want to make sure that you have a blouse, that a belt if you have, and a belt for a man too. If you have belt loops, you should always have a belt. That's why you have belt loops. And then closed-toed shoes that are darker than your skirt color. You want to make sure that you have the appropriate undergarments. There are so many more things that a woman has to deal with. And that your skirt length is just above knee. And you want to make sure that it covers your thigh as you sit, ladies. And then anytime the invitation says business professional, this is what you wear. I do a lot of events, and what I find is that if the invitation says business professional, the men typically will wear what? A suit. And the women wear whatever they want. So in the business world, we don't want to give our power away. It's gender neutral. If it says business professional, you need to have a suit. So my encouragement is, I know that y'all are a mix of classifications. If you don't have a suit, men or women, be on the lookout to get one. Make that investment. And there are lots of websites that give ideas on what to wear with what. You want to be conservative, and you want to make sure that you are, especially women, you don't want pants that are jeggings, that are wet, that are very tight. You want something that's more of a trouser. The reason I put this picture in is that when you look at this student here, and she's got this dark outfit, and all of a sudden she's got the taupe shoe, you just kind of stop. You want this look, you want to be long and lean, you want something that is the same color as you move down from top to bottom. Now men with this new brown shoe, you're okay. I know most of you, as you get away from the interview, will be working in business casual. And my biggest thing is this. Remember that it is business casual, not date casual. So look like a person who is going into work and you are portraying a professional image. You want to look very, very pulled together. And you want to display power and confidence, all those things that you want people to perceive of you. You can do that with your clothing. And here's the thing. Never, ever, ever wear flip-flops to the training class or to any type of event because people don't want to see too much skin. And even for women, you want to make sure that you don't wear really strappy sandals because, again, people don't want to see a lot of skin in the workforce. So these were some students at a class of mine, and so this was business professional, and this is an example of what I typically see. Is you want to make sure that you are respectful of what the invitation calls for with business professional. And the woman who did it right is here. I think I'm not using the thing. Here. This way too strappy sandal. See the difference? And the skirt is way too short. Again, it's business. We're in business. In business. We're not going out on a date. We don't want to be provocative. We don't want to be dressing like we're going to a club. And we want to be business. We want people to perceive us as being confident. So just a thought. Those who are well-dressed are perceived as being smarter for a visual society. So my thought is this. How handsome is this? Use your attire as a business tool to accomplish your objectives, both personally and professionally. It's a business tool. That's all it is. So networking, what is it?
Building relationships that you can utilize in the future.
Yes? Where is that? Oh, okay. But you're exactly right. It is. That could have been E. But of these options, B, meeting people you can provide something of value to without an expectation of receiving something. That's exactly right. That's what networking is. Many people think, I'm going to go to this career firm, gather all these business cards, and then they sit. And you don't do anything with them. Find a few people that you would like to have a relationship with because you can add value to them. Because there might be people in your network that you meet now and you may not need them as a reference or need them as a person who can provide information for several years. So if you keep putting deposits into the relationship by keeping up with them, by remembering important events, using LinkedIn to see when they have, if they've changed jobs or if they have anniversaries, a great tool to help you keep track of people that are in your network. So the important thing is confident introductions. I was able to, I think, shake hands with almost every one of you, and I want to go over very quickly a confident introduction because that is the best way to make a positive first impression. After a person sees you, before you even see them, you're communicating based on your attire and your facial expressions. So when you get in, ready for the introduction, you want to make sure that it's really positive. So you want to be in the moment. You're not thinking about all these other things that are going on, what you're doing over the weekend, the fact that maybe you had a bad day. You always want to stand tall. Standing shows respect for the person. So always stand. Always have a confident voice and a voice that will carry. Make sure that you have good eye contact, not only in the interaction, but as you are listening to a person. Because if you are looking around the room, looking for someone else, what does that tell the person? That you're not interested. That's exactly right. You always, and I'm going to say, compliment to you, almost every single one of you, as you introduced yourself with your first and your last name. So can we clap for each other? That is awesome. As students, typically, I don't hear that. I hear only first names. So always your first and last name because it is so valuable. That is your name, so be proud of it. The other thing is this firm handshake. You don't want to have a bone crusher, but you want to go web to web. Come in with a flat hand, go web to web. Make sure that you keep those fingers together and it's firm. And can I get you to stand up, Ms. Riley? Oh, lovely. So as you go in, and I didn't see any men do this, but I'll have some men kind of do just extend your hand, do that, do web to web, because if you crook your finger like this, you're going to get the girly handshake. You don't want the girl. You don't want the girly handshake. Because we're gender neutral. Don't give your power away. So come in, and when you shake, it's a 1, 2, and then drop. You don't want to, hey, nice to meet you. And then do this. That's just reserved for people that are very special in your life, not everyone. And don't be a politician and do this. The other thing is don't do this. Bend over, turn your hand over, and don't come at the we don't want to do that. So thank you. So most of you really great handshake. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then here's the thing. You want to, if someone says, hi, I'm Randi Knapp, you always want to say your name. I can't tell you the number of students or people that I meet that just... And then if I'm the person that is starting the interaction, then I better have a question at the ready to get that conversation flowing. You don't just stand there because then it's really awkward. Very, very awkward. So one of my favorites is, what's the best thing that's happened today? Or tell me what your weekend plans are. Something that's positive. Because when we think about first impressions, the first words that come out of your mouth are how people develop an impression of you. And if they're positive, then they want more. So if you start saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to spend all weekend studying. Oh, okay. Nice to meet you. They don't want to hear all that. They just want to hear good stuff. And when they say, how are you doing, most people don't hear anyway. They're just saying something nice. So find a way to interact with people. And then have this question prepared. And then have this firm handshake, smile, good eye contact. Here's one thing to think about. As you are meeting other people that are older than you, for example, me, What would you call me? Miss Knapp. Miss Knapp. You wouldn't all of a sudden go, oh, hey, Randy, because we're not the same age. Anybody that's a little bit older, you want to show respect for them and use that honorific, Mr. or Miss. Now, I would say, oh, no, please call me by my first name. Then you would be allowed. But don't assume that that's okay. But you can, when you go work for a company, there's always going to be Miss Susie or Mr. Joe that's working in a certain area of the company, and you always call them by their honorific and their name, because that's a part of the company culture. The other thing is, I will bet many of you have been taught very well by your parents to say ma'am and sir. And know that in the South, we value that. As a mom, I value that. But when you travel to other parts of the country, not so much. And so you, as you get into the work world, you might not want to say it all the time. So a better, instead of saying yes, ma'am, you might want to say yes, as opposed to ma'am. Just something to think about. I love it, but again, it gets back to that interpersonal flexibility. And then when you introduce others, your least important person is introduced to the person of greater importance. And so what you want to make sure you do is say the most important person's name first. For example, if Dr. Young came in, president of the university, he would be the most important person. And so I would say, Dr. Young, I'd like to introduce to you Riley Ann Malone. I'd like to introduce to you Riley Ann Malone. So say happy birthday to you. Just a way to think about that. And if you mess up, it's okay. Making the introduction is really the most important thing. And that's a part of being professional. The other thing is we talked about speech and how you can be perceived as positive. You want to, like, if you are like a person like who uses like all the time. Like today, I was like reading the paper about the man the comedian who made fun of Representative Crenshaw, who wears the eye patch. And as he was talking, they quoted him exactly. He had like in his explanation several times. It's a filler word, and you need to remove it, because in the business world, it is not considered professional. And people will count the number of times you say like, as opposed to listening for content. The other thing is yeah or dude, is you got to get out of student speak. And then if I were to say thank you to you, if you were to Chick-fil-A, you would say what? Correct. If you don't, how do you respond? You're welcome. Because don't say no problem, it's a double negative. And if someone says thank you and you say no problem, what's the last word they hear out of your mouth? Problem. Yeah, why do you want to talk about problems when there aren't any problems? Just say you're welcome, or my pleasure. And then using up talk or vocal fry is this. And I hear some people talking this. Or instead of making statements, people ask questions. Today is Friday. No, today is Friday. See how I went down with my voice? And then some people will talk with adding syllables to their words. Hi, Miss Napa. Just say the word. Say the words. And then know that, as I said, without saying a word, you're communicating. So you've got to watch your body language. Watch your body language. I was at an event for Marine Codes on Sunday, and I was talking with one of the young men, and he started doing this. And I said, so if I did this as I was listening to you, what would you think? What's my body language telling you? Closed off. Yeah, I'm closed off. And even when you do this, it's called fig leaping. You have clothes on, don't do it. Just stand tall with your hands beside you. And what I would always encourage you to do when you go to any kind of event, get a drink in your left hand, because your right hand is your social hand. Oh, and where would you wear your name tag? Get a name tag. Right hand side, exactly. And you want to wear it closer to your smile than your belly button. Don't put it right there. Wear it kind of where I have it, on the right hand side. And the reason for that is if I go to shake your hand, Miss Susan, my eye's going to travel down your arm and look for your name tag right there. And typically, if you have branding, your branding is going to be on the left. Wear your name tag correctly. Most company representatives don't, but you can be different because you're a professional. You've been in this class. Let's see, what else? So just some ways that I see people stand. So, as you're going to an event, get not your cell phone, pretend this is a cup in my left hand. And so I have my I have my drink here. Oh, thank you. I have my drink. I'm not saying that you must drink alcohol. I'm just saying a drink, because then you cannot fig leaf. You can't do this because you can drink your water. And then you can shake hands, because this is your social thing. Make sure that you do that. So just some ways that things to think about as far as your body language, your facial expressions, have that PFE. I'm going to go stop this with a negative body language, because I'm going to talk very quickly about listening. Who controls a conversation? It's not a trick question. Okay, I've got a vote here.
Person doing the talking.
Excuse me?
Person doing the talking.
Person doing the talking. Okay, anybody else got another answer?
Person who walked up to the conversation, the person who introduced themselves, or
Possibly.
if you walked up to me, you would be in charge of the conversation. If I walked up to you, I would be in charge.
Because you would be the listener. Would you be the listener? Surprisingly, the listener controls the conversation. Because there are ways that I can tell you I'm not listening. Well, one is I can just walk away. B is I can go on my own little mental vacation. I can not look around. I cannot have good eye contact. So think about how you are listening to people, because listening is a gift to others. And if you're not really good at it because you're so focused on what am I going to say about myself based on what this other person is saying, just a thought. It will help you in networking, because your goal of networking in a conversation is to find out about others. And to do that, you have to do what? Listen. That's exactly right, because while listening, one learns. While talking, the other fellow does. I love that. While listening, one learns. While talking, the other fellow does. So think about listening. It's paying attention with not only your ear, but also with your body, with language, and taking advice. So I'm going to suggest that you use manners as a superpower as a professional, because there are so few people who have manners. There are so few people who are thinking about others, because it's all about me. So as a business professional, your job, and as a professional, your job is to be different in a good way. And so let your posture speak well. Don't be a slumpy. My youngest daughter tends to slump. So I'm always on her because this is the way she looks, and it does not come across as really professional. And I'm not saying to be in the military. I'm just saying to stand tall, to lift your head up, and to smile at others. Let the first thing out of your mouth be positive. Introduce yourself to everyone that you don't know. Don't wait for them to come up to you, because that's how you get better at something. And have a goal of making others feel special. Have that positive attitude. And just like poopery is used to get rid of bad smells, you be a person that wants to spray good stuff with people and in the area in which you find yourself. And then be genuine, sincere, and use your manners as the superpower. I would be remiss if I didn't spend just a few minutes on emailing, because this is a way that you can be professional. So many of you probably do not have an email signature, which is my next slide. And then when you send emails, you don't have a salutation, which means, Dear Miss Knapp, Dear Miss Wright, and then a closing that says, regards, respectfully, have a nice day. And you need to do that to be professional. Oh, here's the other thing, is use that subject line intelligently. Don't just say checking in. Or what you would say is, regarding project due on May 3rd, issue with an exclamation point. And then format your message so it's easy to read on most platforms. So here's your email signature. This is what you need to write down, friends. You need to have your name. You need to have your contact information, which would include your email address, which, yes, I know, is already in the from line, as well as your cell phone number. Because if you are emailing someone and they want to get in contact with you, you want to make it as easy as you possibly can for them to get in contact with you, which would include cell phone and email. And then as a student, you can include that you're at Texas A&M University, WU, and what your degree is and when you'll graduate. So now you know that I was in class of 79.
Jane mentioned something really quick about, it's so easy for us to say howdy, whoever, today. since we're at Texas A&M, can you address that, how they would exchange that conversation with somebody else outside of A&M?
It stays here. Because if you go to any other place and go, hey, howdy, who is this cowpoke? It is only Texas A&M. And you noticed I didn't say it. I'm just out of the habit. I don't say howdy because that's not it's not the perception I want you to have of me. So I wouldn't address anyone with howdy. The other thing is, and thank you for asking this, is that notice I don't have my class year at the end of my name. We at A&M understand that. You send that to someone else and they'll think it's your age. So you have to, again, interpersonal flexibility, thinking about my audience. But I can't say enough, if you don't have this, not only in the emails that you initiate, but also those that you respond to. Those you respond to, which means you've got to go into Outlook or you've got to go into Gmail and you've got to set your signature up. It's a signature, so it is on every single email that comes from you. Critical. I can't tell you, my tax attorney did not have this signature set up for anything he responded to. That's really critical. I can't say enough about that. And on the howdy, just don't start your emails with howdy. This is what you see a lot. And this is also so disrespectful to anyone. Hey, Mr. Horses. Don't start anything with hey, even a text. Not going to make it to class today, I'm going 6. Susie, who is Susie? If you got this, you probably go, delete that. So my last slides, interpersonal flexibility. Who is this guy in the picture? So why do you think I have 2 pictures of him? 2 different environments, yes. What does he typically look like? Very uncomfortable. But what is his, when you think Mark Zuckerberg, what do you think about his attire? Very, very casual. What you would see on the bottom. So why is he dressed like this? It was a lie suit. He was in front of Congress or the Senate. He was in front of people that dress like this. So do you think this would have worked? What did he want people to think about him? He's a professional. What else did they want to? What else did he want them to think about him? Smart, taken seriously. What else? What does he want people to do with Facebook? Starts with a T. Exactly. So he had on blue. Blue is a trustworthy color. Oh, gentlemen, please don't go buy a black suit. Because the profession that typically wears black is what? Morticians. Exactly right. So we're charcoal gray or navy blue. Navy blue, trustworthy. Whatever color is best for you, just don't get black. So this is interpersonal flexibility. It's a great example of how someone who always wants to be like this had to sell out so he would be considered trustworthy. Because this is what typically, and look, is that just not the grossest thing? That is just nasty with those nasty feet. So anyway, the other thing I would say is this. As you are walking, gentlemen and ladies, you always want to close your suit jacket as you are standing. When you sit down, you can open it up. Because otherwise, it's not the image, again, that you want. So lastly, I'm so excited. So we're going to have more than 5 minutes. Mom's advice. Think about the destination that you want to have, not only with your college career, but also in your life. Know that you're going to have detours. But again, it gets back to that attitude and how you approach detours, which some of you may think, it's a failure. I'm a failure. No, you're not. Failure is the way that you become really successful. Failure is what turns you into the person that you can become. If you never have any adversity, you're a snowflake. You really are a snowflake. And that's not what you want to be. You want to practice being kind to others. Because guess what? When you are kind to others, it comes back to you. You want to have the abundance mentality of showing kindness to people as opposed to there's not enough, and so that's considered a scarcity mentality. And then know, as you think about learning about yourself, you know what your strengths are, thanks to Ms. Wright. But know how that makes you unique, because you also have different behaviors. You also have all sorts of different life experiences. And then you have your own value and belief system. And that all is combined to make you who you are. And you may need to relabel yourself. If you think, oh, I'm really shy, never tell yourself, I'm shy. I was talking to a guy yesterday who was about to get married. He said, do you help people with speeches? He goes, I'm an awful public speaker. I said, keep telling yourself that and you will be. He said, say, I'm working on being a confident public speaker. Because you're telling yourself, confident public speaker. Confident public speaker. Self-talk, positive self-talk. Make good choices. I would also have to say, shots are not your friend. And then I love this autograph all you do in innocence. Every single thing that you do has your name associated with it, which means that your parents' name is associated with it, which means that Texas A&M was associated with it. It's your parents' name. Y'all have been a great audience. And now I'm going to open it up for questions. Yes?
What made you what early on, I guess, made you decide to be a consultant or to, do, I guess, what you're doing?
What made me decide? So I fell into a recruiting experience. I've kind of fallen into a lot of things, but I have always enjoyed public speaking. I have a heart for other people. I'm an extrovert. And it just happened. It really just happened based on my skill set. And then I found that I've got to be better at this, so I'm always looking for ways to learn and to perfect my craft. Yes?
How long have you been a consultant?
About 30 years. Yes. And then I'm coming over here.
After
Yes.
someone has given you permission to call them by their first name, is it disrespectful to continue to call them by their last name?
Great question. Great question. So here's my story. Her question is, if someone has given you permission to call by your first name, can you still call them by their last name? When I worked for Anderson Consulting, when I first went in, my daddy taught me you call everybody Mr. and Miss. And it was a first name only organization, except for Mr. Whitty. Everybody called Mr. Whitty Mr. Whitty. It was very hard for me for a partner to call them by their first name, but that was the culture of the organization, and so I had to show interpersonal flexibility and get used to it. Yes.
When you were a recruiter for Accenture or, I guess, Anderson, what was something whenever you were interviewing potential, employees, what was something that made them stand out in the interview?
Oh, great question. What made a person stand out? It was their ability to answer my questions. It was their ability to be confident in themselves. It was their ability to be comfortable in their own skin and bring their most authentic, confident self to any type of interaction that they have with me. And someone who, you are what you are, and if someone has had a bad semester or made a poor grade on a particular class, is to take responsibility for that. You don't want to blame, the professor. I couldn't understand the professor, so that's why I did poorly. No, I did poorly because I had difficulty understanding what was going on in the class. See the difference? That to me was profound. Yes?
For guys, is it okay to wear a nice pair of boots instead of dress shoes for business professional?
It's so interesting that you asked that because Dr. Reister is always on me about that. Tell me about those cowboy boots. Business professional does not include cowboy boots. And so you cannot take the definition of business casual and change it because we're in Texas. But a lot of people do. And so it really is up to you. But I have heard that when you wearing cowboy boots in certain situations in Texas is great. And of course, I know that they would be nicely shined. They would not be the ones that you were in the pasture with. But you have to look at, what if I go to Washington, D.C., or what if I go someplace else? How are they going to cowboy boots? So it really is up to you. And you have to look at the situation. Yes?
So over the years of all the clients you worked with, what's the number one most easy mistake that really is the easy to fix mistake that you've seen out there?
Easy to fix a mistake? Is this with people or is it with
Just people want to present themselves or an interview or just in mind.
Okay, so the thing that makes my job easy or challenging is the attitude of a person. If a person is coachable and they want to be the best they can be, then whatever I tell them, they're willing to work on. But I have had certain students who would say, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And guess what they're telling themselves? Whether you say you can or say you can't, you're right. That's what Henry Ford said.
One more question.
All right. Let's see. Who should it be? You tell me.
Ooh, I get to choose?
Yes, you get to choose.
Oh, gosh.
Uh-oh. That's right.
Let's see. Over here.
Yes.
Is it more impactful to hold a good conversation or to be more professional when making decisions?
Okay, say that again. More impactful.
To hold like a good conversation and be able to be personable with whoever you're talking to, or to just have a very professional sense about yourself?
Both. It's a little bit of both. Here's the thing. If you look the part, but you're so uncomfortable and you can't have a conversation. But if you don't look the part, the first impression is not going to be positive. And so you've got a lot to do to make up for that. And so my suggestion is if you can control both of those things, always be at your A game. Always be at your A game. Thank you. Y'all have been great. Have fun.
I always learn something new from you every time I watch one of your presentations. All right, Aggies, make sure that you sign up for an interview time for next week. That is your mock interview. If you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, come see Gabby or myself. Make sure that your cover letter and your resume are turned in up front. We will have that with you with your proposals after class. If I call your name, I need you to come and talk to me about your project.